We live in an ever-changing world. While many people in the Western world live their lives very similarly to how others have for the past 6 decades, the means for how we go about living have changed dramatically. This is due in part to many things, but above all, due to the rapid escalation and advancements in technology. It really isn't hard to spot these differences at all if you look around. Comparing cars, for example, from just 30 years ago to the cars of today. We've gone from driving gas-starved boats to sleek, fuel-efficient bullets. Cell phones have gone from being big, cumbersome bananas to little slabs capable of thousands of tasks. Computers, once the size of entire rooms, are now able to fit on a desk or even just in your lap, while performing millions of times better than any old computer could ever dream of. Each of these technologies and more have made our lives easier and, depending on who you ask, more enjoyable as a whole. With these advancements in technology came advancements specifically in the goods and services meant for our entertainment and leisure. Things like television and movies becoming clearer, more colorful, 3D, better sound quality, and more. Musicians getting access to a suite of new technologies and programs that allow for more creative freedom in their music and concerts. And what in recent years has arguably become the biggest piece of technological entertainment, video game systems have seen arguably some of the most noticeable improvements over the past 50 years. The video game industry is one that has received criticism since its inception. Like any other form of mass media and entertainment, the games industry, video game companies, and video games themselves have been scapegoats on numerous occasions for various reasons over the years. Whether the argument is that a certain video game causes violence, such as Grand Theft Auto or Mortal Kombat, that they support sadism, such as with Pokemon, or that they simply waste our time and rot our brain. These arguments have all been made before, be it toward TV, music, movies, and more. Innovation, or more accurately, change, is something that a lot of people are afraid of. What's normal is comfortable. However, without change, there can be no growth. There would never be anything new, and the pursuit of new technology and designs is what new media is all about. And nobody understands this better than Nintendo. Over the years, we've seen the rise and fall of many major players in the games industry, and many of them are responsible for leading the way to the video game and game technologies we have today. One of the most famous names, of course, being Atari. While the Atari 2600 was not the first video game console, or even the first from Atari, it was by far their biggest success. It brought with it more power and more speed, allowing for a far better play experience. But what pushed it above all the rest at the time was the ability to switch out game cartridges. While this may sound extremely minor today, this was revolutionary in the 1970s. Most video game consoles of that era not only cost an arm and a leg, but really only played one game, a far cry from what we have available to us today. Even movies at the time were almost entirely watched via TV and could not be watched from home on any kind of player. In fact, the Atari 2600 released with this feature a mere month after VHS tapes were first made available to the American public, showing that, in terms of accessibility and features, video games have been neck and neck with other media nearly since inception. While what Atari did for video games was fantastic and led to the charge of a new era in gaming, they eventually lost their thunder and faded away with the other strange and forgotten failed game companies. The only company to really come out of the video game crash of the 1980s was Nintendo. How exactly did Nintendo, a company that at the time was mostly known for their toys, manage to do this? Well, with a little-known game called Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. Was a game changer. It showed the world that video games could be more than whatever this was supposed to be. Gone were the days of simple high-score-based games with no real ending. While some narrative-focused video games did exist prior to Mario Bros., they were less than ideal gameplay experiences. If a game was meant to have a story, the gameplay often suffered, and if the priority was the game experience, there was normally no story or endgame. While Super Mario Bros. Certainly didn't have the most complex story, its simple task of saving the damsel in distress, combined with its iconic music, gameplay loop, and the new visuals and power from Nintendo's console, the Famicom, it ensured that it would carry Nintendo into the future. As time went on, Nintendo grew bigger and better, making more systems and continuing to innovate. Eventually, they started facing competition, which was actually a very good thing. While a lot of people nowadays can find console exclusivity to be a bit of a nuisance, as it sort of artificially prevents everyone from being able to have the same game experiences, it doesn't come without benefits. Gaming companies are first and foremost businesses, and their main goal is to drive consumers to their systems. The best way to do this is by making great games. This is exactly what happened with the introduction of Sega during the 16-bit generation of gaming. They gave Nintendo a run for their money with their new mascot and franchise, Sonic, exclusively on the Sega Genesis. The same happened again when moving into the 3D era of gaming. A new and without a doubt Nintendo's biggest competitor entered the scene, Sony, with the groundbreaking PlayStation console. For the untrained eye, it looked like Sony was crushing Nintendo in every single way during this era. And in fact, Nintendo would never actually be able to claim the mantle of having sold the most of one video game system again, with the PlayStation 2 selling a whopping 155 million units. Nintendo, however, was actually doing fine during this time, kept afloat almost entirely by their handheld gaming systems, and ones we should all know very well, the Game Boy and later on, the Nintendo DS, which interestingly enough was actually short of PlayStation's record for the most sold systems by only 800,000 units, sitting at 154.2 million units sold. That is a lot of paperweights. These systems were a big deal, and deserve to be talked about in their own right at a later time. But what should be known is that they give Nintendo an enormous safety blanket to experiment with their next system after the lackluster performance of their previous two systems, the Nintendo GameCube and the Nintendo 64. After a series of mistakes with their previous home systems, Nintendo knew that they needed to make a change. They could have simply gone down the route of their competitors, Sony and Microsoft, and beefed up their newest system, providing a smoother and faster HD experience. However, Nintendo is nothing if not innovative. What they chose to do would shake the gaming and hardware world right up until today, 17 years later. The Nintendo Wii was a revolution. No, literally, that was its codename before it was properly announced. Seriously though, this thing was a big deal. Seemingly overnight, Nintendo completely changed the gaming landscape. The Wii was unlike any other console on the market, and because of this, it offered opportunities and experiences for both developers and gamers alike that could not be found anywhere else. Because of all of this, the Wii was highly sought after upon its release. This made finding one on the shelves of a store during its earliest days on the market very hard. This, combined with the widespread love for major news outlets and gamers alike, made the Wii a must-have system. What was it that made the Wii so unique, however? Simply put, the Wii was built around motion. Unlike any other system before it, the Wii was made with the intention of getting the player to move around and be active. This alone made the system far more appealing to parents, as it meant that the arguably biggest complaint with other video game systems was being met, that being the lack of any physical activity. Or, more accurately, that video games had made children less active. The idea of making games feel even more real also led to a new set of consumers who typically wouldn't even play video games. Everyone and their grandma bought a Wii almost exclusively to play bowling in their living room. And it truly was a unique experience that couldn't be found anywhere else. To many, the Wii was just magic. What kind of technology and methods allowed the system to work as it did? Quite frankly, nothing that special. The Wii didn't have particularly great internal specs, only being a hair stronger than its predecessor, the GameCube. In fact, it was basically just a GameCube in a new case with some technical add-ons. However, it was those add-ons that truly set the Wii apart. The magic behind the motion aspects of the Wii came from this little guy, the Wii Remote, or Wiimote. It's clear immediately to anyone who's seen a video game controller before that this one is very unlike the rest, resembling a TV remote more than anything else. The Wii Remote's simple design allowed it to be transformed into many things, from tennis rackets to baseball bats to Bambi's worst nightmare. Along with how non-complex using the remote was, what made it work was also nothing amazing. The Wii Remote only needed 2 AA batteries, and from there, all of the motion came from the front of the device, that being the IR sensor. IR, or infrared, only worked, however, when paired with the Wii's IR sensor bar. To put it more simply, the bar sends out an infrared signal, which is picked up by the detectors on the front of the Wii Remote. The remote then uses distance and angular information to triangulate its location, which it then sends back, along with the acceleration data of the player's movements, back to the actual Wii console. As long as the remote and everything else is working properly, it should happen seamlessly, as just like light, infrared light travels Well, fast. Another version of the Wii Remote was released 2.5 years after the Wii, dubbed Wii Motion Plus. This was essentially just a more accurate version of the Wii Remote that could better detect movements thanks to the help of adding 2 gyroscopic sensors. As time went on, Nintendo's competitors would try to cut into Nintendo's market, with the Xbox releasing the Kinect and Sony releasing the PlayStation Move. While neither did nearly as well as the Wii, both did innovate and add to the family of motion gaming in their own ways respectively. The Wii did begin to fall out of grace over time, as the casual player base grew tired of real and especially fake bowling, and more true gamers desired stronger hardware. Nintendo would continue to try and milk the Wii with their follow-up system, the Wii U. And while the Wii U sold pretty horrendously, Nintendo would eventually go on to combine its previous 2 systems properly with the extremely popular Nintendo Switch. Console-quality gaming on the go, with motion play, easy multiplayer, and more. Lightning once again captured in a bottle. Now, nearly a decade since the Wii has been off the market, its effects are still felt. This is seen in the world of virtual reality more than anywhere else. Modern-day commercial VR is heavily inspired by the motion game consoles from the past 15 years, and it's not hard to see how or why. Truthfully, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all contributed in a big way to the VR landscape we have today. The 2 remote setup most VR systems use was taken from the PlayStation Move. The idea of using your whole body was taken from the Kinect. And the way the controllers work was taken from Nintendo. Most importantly though, no inspiration could have been taken at all if Nintendo didn't first set the trend. The idea of motion in gaming wasn't exactly brand new when the Wii came around, but realistically, it was never seen as anything more than a cheap gimmick that could distract you for an hour at best. Being able to move around and truly make an impact on the game with your own movements was not a mainstream idea until the Wii. And now, VR gaming is sought after by many people and is slowly becoming more widely available with things like Oculus Quest, PSVR, HTC Vive, and Steam VR. Each feature technology that was first introduced in one way or another from the Wii. And it's not just gamers who benefit from this new boom in VR. Having to work from home in a virtual environment has never been more topical than it is today. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of companies were forced to switch to at-home working, using platforms like Zoom to communicate and host meetings. Seeing this, companies are turning to VR to further enhance this experience, the most prominent example of course being the artist formerly known as Facebook, Meta. Whatever you may think of the metaverse, there is no denying it is an innovative and exciting concept. Virtual meetups are something that have been common for decades, going from group calls to chat rooms to meeting in virtual games like Minecraft, or more recently, VR chat. Seeing businesses finally go down this route is just exciting. The more time, money, and effort that is put into this technology, the better for all of us who have the benefit of using it. The more mainstream something becomes, the easier it becomes to produce and acquire. Meaning the once impossible idea of living or relaxing in a virtual world becomes more possible every day. And once again, this all started taking off when the Wii did. If it weren't for Nintendo and the Wii, who knows if VR would be as big a deal as it is today. Even the Nintendo Switch has been inspiring mainstream tech companies to change how they make portable computers, such as Valve with the Steam Deck. The similarities are uncanny. And while the Steam Deck has been marketed as primarily for gaming, it is itself, at the end of the day, a fully functioning computer. Seeing power of that scale in such a small form factor is amazing, and I doubt it would have been thought of for a while if not for Nintendo and the Switch. Nintendo has been setting the bar for innovation in the tech and entertainment industry for decades, and they show no sign of stopping. They aren't afraid of taking risks, and will always come up with new creative ways to get people to buy their product. Whatever I or you may think of their business practices, there is no denying their impact on the world of gaming and on the world of technology, design, and new media as a whole.